Have you ever stopped to think about that stuff in your wallet? Or more likely, that number on your screen? I'm talking about money. It's something we use every single day. But where did it come from? How did we go from trading seashells to tapping our phones to buy a coffee? It's a wild story, full of innovation, power struggles, and some seriously strange ideas. Today, we're going on an epic journey through time to uncover the incredible history of money, from the earliest days of barter all the way to the digital age of Bitcoin. So grab your popcorn, because this is a story that affects every single one of us. Let's rewind the clock. Way back. Thousands of years ago. Before coins, before paper bills, before anything we'd recognize as money. Imagine a world without it. How would you get what you need? The answer was simple. You'd trade. This system is called bartering. If you were a farmer with a surplus of wheat, and your neighbor was a fisherman with a net full of fish, you could swap a bag of wheat for a few fish. Sounds straightforward, right? Well, not exactly. Bartering had some major headaches. The biggest one was what economists call the double coincidence of wants. You not only had to find someone who had what you wanted, but that person also had to want what you had. Imagine you're a skilled carpenter who makes amazing chairs. You need some bread. So, you go to the baker. But the baker doesn't need a chair. He needs new shoes. So now you have to find a shoemaker who happens to need a chair. Trade your chair for shoes, and then go back to the baker to trade the shoes for bread. It's exhausting, just thinking about it. Then there was the problem of value. How many fish is one chair worth? How many apples for a clay pot? There was no standard unit of measurement, so every trade was a negotiation, and it could get complicated and unfair really fast. Plus, what if your goods were perishable? A fisherman couldn't just save up a pile of fish for a month to trade for something big, and you won't exactly chop a live cow in half if you only want to trade for a small item. Clearly, humanity needed a better system. This is where commodity money comes into the picture. People started to realize that certain goods were more useful for trading than others. These items were widely accepted, durable, and easily divisible. What kind of items? Well, it varied all over the world. In ancient China, they used cowrie shells. In parts of Africa, salt blocks were a hot commodity. Roman soldiers were even sometimes paid in salt debts, where we get the word salaria from the Latin word salarium. Other common forms of commodity money included cattle, grain, spices, and even giant, immovable stones on the island of Yap. While this was a big step up from direct bartering, it still wasn't perfect. Carrying around sacks of grain or herds of cattle isn't exactly convenient. Cowrie shells could be found on the beach, potentially devaluing them, and salt melts in the rain. People needed something more practical, more durable, and rarer, and that's when humanity struck gold. Literally, around 3000 BC, people in ancient Mesopotamia started using precious metals like gold and silver for trade. Why these metals? Well, they had a lot going for them. They were rare. So they held their value. They were durable. They don't rust or decay. They were portable and easy to carry. And crucially, they were divisible. You could chop up a gold bar into smaller pieces to pay for smaller things. For a long time, people would carry around little bits of gold or silver and weigh them on scales for every transaction. You can imagine this was still a bit of a hassle. You'd have to trust that the scales were accurate and that the metal was pure. Every time you wanted to buy something, it turned into a mini science experiment. There had to be an even better way, and there was. The real game changer came around 600 BC in a kingdom called Lydia, which is in modern-day Turkey. The Lydians came up with a brilliant idea. Why not take those chunks of metal, standardize their weight and purity, and stamp them with an official seal to guarantee their value? And just like that, the first coins were born. These early coins were made from a natural alloy of gold and silver called electrum, and they were often stamped with images of gods or rulers. This was a revolutionary invention. Suddenly, trade became incredibly simple. You didn't need scales anymore. You could just count the coins. The government's stamp was a promise that the coin was worth what it claimed to be. This idea spread like wildfire. The Greeks, the Romans, the Persians, everyone started minting their own coins. Empires could now fund armies, build massive structures, and manage vast territories more easily than ever before. Coins made the world go round, fueling trade along the Silk Road and connecting distant civilizations. For over 1,000 years, coins reigned supreme as the primary form of money, but carrying a big bag of heavy coins could still be a drag, not to mention risky. The stage was set for the next major leap in the history of money. That next leap happened in 7th century China during the Tang dynasty. Merchants who were traveling long distances didn't want to carry heavy strings of copper coins, so they started leaving their coins with a trusted agent who would give them a paper receipt. They could then use this paper receipt to trade in another city, and the new owner of the receipt could go and claim the actual coins. Sound familiar? This was the birth of paper money. The Chinese government quickly saw the potential of this system. By the 11th century, during the Song dynasty, the government took over the printing of paper money, creating the world's first government-issued bank. This was a mind-blowing concept for the time. You're trading a piece of paper that, in itself, is worthless. Its value came from the government's promise that you could exchange that piece of paper for something of actual value, like gold, silver, or silk. This is what we call representative money. The paper asterisk represents asterisk, a value held somewhere else. When the famous explorer Marco Polo traveled to China in the 13th century, he was astonished by this idea. He wrote about it in his book, describing how the Great Khan could essentially create wealth out of the bark of a tree. When he returned to Europe, people thought he was crazy. Europeans were still clinging to their gold and silver coins and were deeply skeptical of paper money. It took several more centuries for the idea to catch on in the West. The first European banknotes appeared in Sweden in the 17th century. The Bank of Stockholm started issuing them as a way to finance the government. Other countries slowly followed suit. However, this new form of money came with a new set of problems. What happens when a bank or a government prints more paper money than it has gold or silver to back it up? That's right, inflation. The value of the money plummets, and people lose faith in it. This has been a recurring theme throughout history, a constant battle to maintain trust in the currency. For a long time, most major currencies were on the gold standard. This meant that a country's government guaranteed that you could exchange your paper money for a certain amount of gold. For example, the US dollar was fixed at a price of $20.67 per ounce of gold. This system provided stability and limited a government's ability to print money recklessly. If they didn't have the gold, they couldn't print the bills. This created a sense of security and kept inflation in check for decades. But the gold standard had its own limitations. A country's economic growth was tied to its gold supply. If a country didn't have enough gold, it couldn't expand its money supply to stimulate the economy during a downturn. This became a huge problem during the Great Depression in the 1930s. Countries started abandoning the gold standard to have more flexibility in managing their economies. The final nail in the coffin for the gold standard came in 1971. The United States was facing economic pressures from the Vietnam War and growing inflation. President Richard Nixon made a shocking announcement. The U.S. would no longer convert dollars to gold at a fixed rate. This decision, known as the Nixon shock, effectively ended the international gold standard. From that moment on, the world entered a new era of money, the era of fiat currency. Fiat is a Latin word meaning, let it be done. Fiat money is money that has value simply because the government says it does. That dollar bill in your pocket isn't backed by gold or silver. It's backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government. Its value comes from our collective trust in the system and its stability. Almost every currency in the world today, from the euro to the Japanese yen, is a fiat currency. This system gives central banks immense power to control the money supply, manage inflation, and steer the economy. But it also relies completely on trust. If people lose trust in a government, the value of its currency can collapse, leading to hyperinflation, as we've seen in countries like Zimbabwe and Venezuela. As we moved through the 20th century, money became increasingly abstract. It wasn't just about physical coins and paper anymore. The rise of banks and financial institutions led to the creation of checks, which were just written orders to a bank to pay someone. Then, in the 1950s, the Diners Club introduced the first credit card, revolutionizing how we pay for things. Suddenly, you could make purchases without any physical money changing hands at all. It was just a promise to pay later. The real revolution, however, came with the dawn of the computer age. With the advent of electronic banking and the internet, money transformed from something physical into pure information ones and zeros flying through cyberspace. Today, the vast majority of money in the world exists only as digital entries in bank ledgers. When you get your paycheck via direct deposit, or pay a bill online, or use your debit card, no physical cash is moving. It's all just data being transferred electronically. This has made transactions faster, more convenient, and more global than ever before. We can send money to someone on the other side of the world in a matter of seconds. This digital transformation has been incredible, but it's all been built on the traditional banking system. The banks and governments are still the central authorities that control and verify all these transactions. But what if we could have a digital money system without a central authority? A system that was truly pure? That question leads us to the latest and perhaps most disruptive chapter in the history of money: cryptocurrency. In 2008, a mysterious person or group of people using the pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto published a white paper online. It was titled Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. This paper laid out the blueprint for a revolutionary new kind of digital money that didn't need a bank or a government to run it. Bitcoin is built on a groundbreaking technology called the blockchain. You can think of the blockchain as a giant, public, digital ledger. Every single Bitcoin transaction is recorded in this ledger as a block. Each new block is cryptographically linked to the one before it, creating a chain. This chain is not stored in one central place. It's distributed across a global network of thousands of computers. This makes it incredibly secure. To alter a transaction, you would have to alter every single block that came after it on thousands of computers simultaneously, which is practically impossible. This decentralized nature is what makes Bitcoin so unique. There's no CEO of Bitcoin. There's no central bank that can print more of it or change the rules. The rules are baked into the code and enforced by the network itself. This has created a form of money that is truly borderless, censorship resistant, and outside the control of any single entity. Of course, the story of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies is still being written. It's a world filled with incredible innovation, but also with extreme volatility, scams, and regulatory uncertainty. People debate whether it's the future of finance or just a speculative bubble. Since Bitcoin's creation, thousands of other crypto, often called altcoins, have emerged, each trying to improve on the original concept or serve a specific purpose. We have smart contract platforms like Ethereum, which are like global computers that can run decentralized applications, and stablecoins, which are cryptocurrencies pegged to the value of a fiat currency like the US dollar to reduce volatility. So, where do we go from here? The future of money is likely to be a fascinating mix of the old and the new. Traditional fiat currencies aren't going away anytime soon, but they are also evolving. Many central banks around the world are now exploring the idea of creating their own digital currencies, often called CBDCs, or central bank digital currencies. These would be like a digital version of the dollar or the euro, issued and backed by the central bank, offering the efficiency of digital payments with the stability of traditional money. At the same time, decentralized cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin will continue to challenge our very definition of what money is and who should control it. We may be heading towards a future where multiple forms of money coexist. You might use a central bank digital currency for your daily groceries, hold some cryptocurrency as a long-term investment or for international transfers, and even use specialized tokens within online gaming communities or social networks. The journey of money has been an incredible one. From the simple act of trading a fish for some grain, to the creation of coins stamped by kings, to the abstract concept of paper backed only by trust, and now to the mind-bending world of decentralized digital code. Each step of the way has been driven by human ingenuity and our constant search for a better, more efficient way to exchange value. Money is more than just a tool for buying things. It's a technology that has shaped our societies, built empires, and connected the world. It's a reflection of our trust in each other and in our institutions. The story is far from over, and what money looks like in another 100 or even 10 years is anyone's guess. But one thing is for sure, it's going to be an exciting ride. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey through the history of money. It's a huge topic, and we've only scratched the surface. What do you think the future of money holds? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video and learned something new, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the fascinating stories that shape our world. We'll see you in the next one.